Today, we're going to reveal the greatest health scam in history, and it's still going on right now. What should dietary food guidelines be? What food is truly healthy? And what about vaccines? Are they safe? Are they effective? And what about chemicals? Are they generally recognized as being safe? There is something at the core of this problem that is so obvious it's nearly invisible. Today, I'm going to give you a lot of awareness on this topic. Now, I think you know that the number one factor involved with chronic disease is food, right? But the big question is, what do you mean by food? Did you realize that there's actually two definitions of food? There's a biological definition, and then there's a legal definition. This is the legal definition of food that was established in 1938 by the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Articles used for components of any such articles, as long as they're labeled and packaged correctly, it's food. Now, what the heck did that mean? It basically is just gibberish. It's defining food as food. It makes no sense. But this legal loophole definition of food is not the real biological definition of food, which is this: that which is eaten to sustain life, promote the repair and growth of tissues, nourishment. Do you actually see what's omitted in the legal definition? Like the biological reason why we eat food, to nourish our bodies. This is how the big food industries have won. Even before any debates on the topic of food, you can basically make poison food if you package it correctly. So it's been really hard to do the guidelines and figure out what's healthy, what's not. So industry has done something brilliant, not ethical, but super smart. Because from this one misdefinition, there were multi-billion-dollar companies created that has literally been selling what I think is poisonous food and normalizing it as food. I mean, no one in their right mind, if they really understood what's in junk food, would eat it, but it's been normalized and it's been legalized and everyone does it, so it must be okay. I mean, just think about this for a second. If I were to ask you, is 100% of the food that people eat actually food? You would probably say no, but it is food according to the legal definition. But here's another question. Can you create health on ultra-processed food? The answer is no. Why not? Because it's not sustainable. It doesn't repair the body. You cannot exist very long on ultra-processed food because it is at the core of chronic disease. So this one little tiny misdefinition has camouflaged the root cause of chronic disease because now we don't really see the cause and effect relationship. Don't worry, it gets worse. What they then did is make healthy food actually junk, looking at food just as calorie fuel, equating sugar water with a steak. They're both the same. They're just made out of calories. As long as you do a balanced diet, you're going to be fine. Balance between what? Real food or fake food, like nourishment or poison. This completely gives food no responsibility in the effects that it creates. This was actually established in 1980. At the time, they were trying to make breakfast cereal and sugar okay and normalized. So they had to again make all these calories equal in importance. And of course, that was adapted by the dietitians in the US. In fact, this is taught in their curriculum. Not only have they redefined junk as food, they also inverted it and made food junk, as in red meat, saturated fats, salt. All these things were demonized as junk food or very dangerous or unhealthy. That's only the tip of the iceberg, okay? This actually gets deeper. Let's take this additional word called drug. What is the definition of the word drug? Anything intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent a disease. That's the definition of a drug. If broccoli prevents any disease or health problem, it's now classified as a drug, and it's regulated by the FDA. In fact, the FDA acts as a protection arm of Big Pharma Because if anything gets close to their monopoly, then they will go after them, especially when you get into supplements and food and things like that. And even if it's backed up by research and science, it doesn't matter. Whoever owns the definitions owns reality. And then we get to vaccines. Let's talk about that. That was also redefined. Stimulating the immune system to produce immunity to a disease and protect that person from a disease. Now let's talk about the redefinition, okay? A preparation used to stimulate the body's immune response against diseases. Did you notice the omission? They removed to produce immunity. So now the legal definition of a vaccine doesn't have to produce immunity. It doesn't have to make you immune. All it has to do is stimulate an immune response. Fascinating. So now when we're talking about vaccines being effective, well, according to the definition, they're effective. They created an immune response. So when you change the definition, you win the war even before the debate begins. But this is why RFK Jr. is such a threat to these various industries, because he is hitting them at the very foundation of this long-standing business model that keeps everything held together, which showed that ultra-processed food calories are one of the big primary drivers of chronic disease for kids. But guess what? There's actually no legal definition of ultra-processed foods. So this gives industry another advantage of pretty much making whatever they want. And this is why RFK right now is establishing a definition for ultra-processed food calories. But one of the things I would personally love to see is to redefine food as the biological definition. And I would also force industry to do their own research, like real research, to prove that it nourished people, that it helped repair tissue, it helped growth. But again, to figure that out, you'd have to first define what food is. Or another option, Plan B, would be to have the food companies put warning labels just like they do with tobacco. And why can't we classify it as an addictive substance? There's a couple of other definitions I want to chat about. Number one is disease. So right now, they have really broadened the definition of diseases to include even risk factors as disease. Osteopenia is a disease. It used to be like a pre-osteoporosis state, but now it's a disease. And the scam with this is that you can do your yearly screenings to pick up these pre-disease states and get you on medication right away. It's just an opportunity to put more people on drugs. I mean, even like the word health. I don't know if you've ever looked this up. This was also changed by the World Health Organization. Complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease. This creates a huge demand for more drugs because no one will fit that definition of health. What health should be defined as is the capacity of adapting and repairing physically, mentally, and socially. That's a much better definition. And unfortunately, there's all these new initiatives that are coming out that are vaguely defining food. I think this is the Trojan horse that just brings in this definition and redefines what health is. But of course, if you look at those meals, they're industrial calories, they're industrial foods, they're ultra processed food calories. They want the insurance to pay for it. I mean, to have your insurance pay for ultra processed foods is just another way of getting it funding. But I don't know if you know this, but these subsidies, which are taxpayer dollars spent to help farmers get through hard times and help subsidize farmers to have a stable market, have turned into something completely different. 1/3 of the subsidies are spent now on fuel, like ethanol from corn, and the great majority of these subsidies, billions of dollars, go to the top 10% of farmers, the very wealthy industrial farmers, not the small farmers producing real foods. And so if you take like a soda, right, that costs $1, how much does the corn syrup actually cost in that can? Like 2 cents. So the only people that benefit is big food. And on top of that, you probably don't know this, but you also pay 60% of the farmer's insurance crop premiums. That's right. You pay for the insurance too to make sure that this whole thing is completely stable. And if something happens, the farmer still gets paid. Is it the small farmer? No, it's the large farmers. And unfortunately, some of the big ag industries actually are tied in and control the insurance industry as well. Yet there's one last initiative I'm going to talk about, and this is the planetary health diet. Sounds pretty nice on the outside, but when you look a little deeper, this is just about pushing the new initiatives on lab grown meat, plant based alternatives, get rid of animal meat. The type of calories that can really create health, they want to eliminate that, and they want to replace that with more soy protein. So when we're talking about sustainability, they'll also bring up this point of, well, if we don't subsidize these foods, people are going to starve to death. Instead of subsidizing these industrial crops, why don't we just make a simple change and switch these subsidies to real food based on the biological definition of food? And that way, we support the farmers who really care about your food and make that more affordable. Why are we rewarding the junk food industry to give us more chronic disease? Centering on the topic of food, and we're talking about the true biological definition, I think it's super important for you to understand what that actually means in actual foods. This was Jada Brown sharing my knowledge. If this was helpful, share this with someone you love and comment yes if you want more of this.